Many of you are familiar with the story of King Solomon becoming king after the great King David, his father, and that he prays to God and he asks for wisdom. And God grants him wisdom so that he can be a great king. Well, comedian David Steinberg had an interesting twist on this story. And he said, God was ready to appoint Solomon king, and in a dream said to him, Solomon, you can have anything that your heart desires. So Solomon answered, O God, grant me wisdom that I might be the wisest king of all. And God granted Solomon's request just like that. And he became all wise. And immediately Solomon knew that he should have asked for money. So goes David Steinberg's twist on that story. A man of some comfortable means overheard a woman lamenting and remarking, if only I had $50, I would be so content. And he thought to himself, well, I can help her out. So he went over to her and he said, ma'am, here you go, $50. And he handed her a $50 bill. And the woman was effusive in her praise. And as she was walking away, he heard her muttering under her breath, why on earth didn't I ask for $100? So she wasn't so content, was she? In today's gospel, we are told of a successful, wise farmer businessman. He knew the proper fertilizers to use. He knew how to take care and get the best crops. He knew the best seed to use. He knew when was the best time to market his product so that he would get the best price. Business was really good, and he ran out of room. So he decided to expand and build larger storage spaces. All of this was very commendable. He would have been admirable, a big man in the community because of his success. He handled everything wisely and well. Yet Jesus called him a failure and a fool. Now, why was that? Why was the rich man a fool? Because he was wealthy? No. Because he was successful? No. He was a fool because he had lost his freedom. Let me tell you a story to illustrate that. There was a family who put up a hummingbird feeder at the window looking out over their backyard. And the hummingbirds came in abundance at this feeder. You've probably seen them already. They're clear glass, and inside is a red syrup that the hummingbirds love. And this particular feeder had 4 different spots where hummers could come and feed. And usually 4 were there all at the same time. And they had to refill that feeder every day because so many hummingbirds were getting their meal there. Well, then it slowed down to needing only to fill it just once a week. And they wondered, why was this? And they observed that there was a male hummingbird who had decided that this feeder was his possession. And he was always on patrol, making sure that no other hummingbird would eat from his feeder. He would be the only one feeding there. So what had happened was that guard duty occupied his every waking hour. And he was a very effective guard, obviously. The only time any other hummingbirds got there was when he was chasing away another one. But what had happened was that he had lost his freedom because he had become possessed by his possession. And that's why the rich man was a fool. He had become possessed by his possessions. So how much does it take to get possessed by our stuff? There's an old Roman proverb that says money is like salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. One of the richest men in the world is Bill Gates of Microsoft. And in the late 1990s, the Attorney General Janet Reno, under the Bill Clinton administration, charged Microsoft with trying to monopolize access to the internet and asked a federal court to fine the company $1 million a day. Now, some of you have probably watched Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. It's a regular feature. And back then in the 1990s, one of the anchors on Weekend Update was Norm Macdonald. And Norm, speaking about this $1 million a day fine, said analysts say at this point that Bill Gates will be broke just 10 years after the Earth crashes into the sun. We don't have a real concept of Bill Gates' wealth, nor we do of Jeff Bezos, who right now, the head of Amazon, is considered the richest man in the world. But from the standpoint of any material wealth, Americans have difficulty realizing how rich we are. Robert Heilbronner is a man who writes books on the subject of the economy, and he suggests that we Americans go through a little mental exercise that will help us count our blessings. So, imagine the following, so that you can see what daily life is like for 1 billion people in our planet. Take out all the furniture in your home, except for one table and a couple of chairs. Use blankets and pads for beds. Take away all your clothing, except for your oldest dress or suit, a skirt or a blouse, and leave only one pair of shoes. Empty the pantry and get rid of the refrigerator, and all you will have is a small bag of flour, some sugar and salt, a few potatoes, some onions, and a dish of dried beans. Dismantle the bathroom, shut off the running water, and remove all the electrical wiring in your house. And you must now take care of your bodily functions out in the field. Take away the house itself and move the family into a tool shed. Place your house, that tool shed, in a shanty town. Cancel all subscriptions to newspapers, magazines, and book clubs, but this will not be any great sacrifice because you cannot read anyway. Leave only one radio for the whole shanty town. Move the nearest hospital or clinic 10 miles away and put a midwife in charge because there is no doctor. Throw away your bank books, your stock certificates, your pension plans, and your insurance policies, and leave your family a cash hoard of $10. Give the head of the family a few acres to cultivate, on which he or she can raise a few $100s of cash crops, of which 1/3 will go to the landlord and 1/10 to the moneylenders. And finally, lop off 25 years in your life expectancy. So now, how rich is every person in this room? And how can we therefore be rich toward God? We recognize that life is a gift from God and we give thanks, and that is the beginning of being rich toward God. We recognize that God has taken care of anything that separates us from God and from other human beings. We call that salvation, saving us from our brokenness, from being possessed by our stuff, from our ungenerosity, from our hoarding. And to be rich toward God is to serve others and to leave a legacy, not of bigger barns, but of our wealth being used to save lives, to feed the hungry, and to end disease. Now, what an interesting lesson this is for hope as you stand at a crossroads trying to determine your future, because you have to ask yourself what God may be saying to you. Has this congregation become possessed by the possession of this building? Amen.